Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Shmindle Shmumlimited in 2025, the podcast for reviews, rants, and ramblings about books from our favorite way to get books, the Kindle Unlimited universe. I'm one of your hosts, Amity.
And I'm Lauren.
And I'm Steph. And this week we read The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. But before we get into the book, how has your week been? What are you guys reading?
I started my life with the Walter Boys for probably the third or fourth time. I don't know why I keep having trouble getting into it. But I am now, I don't know, like 30-ish% of the way through, and I'm in. I'm doing it. Like, I'm gonna finish it this time. Like, I'm in, and it's good, and it's the very beginning of the year, so I'm still very much in like goal setting type mode. I made a mistake, you guys. So I'm doing monthly challenges instead of like a full year-long New Year's resolution this year. And I'm starting with no spend January.
Whoa.
And a whole month? Not like a week?
Well, so it's not food or like drink or something like that, but it's like there's cute Valentine's sweatshirts out, and I'm not buying one. Like optional type purchases. Like I needed deodorant, I bought deodorant.
Okay.
But I need not once.
Yes. Okay. And I checked because I thought for sure I had, but I haven't pre-ordered the next Fourth Wing book yet. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, Brian, you can buy me a gift in January because it's just my no spend January, not your no spend January.
So Rebecca she's on first name basis with us, guys. Onyx Storm is going to have a different special edition version at Target, not on pre-order. So you can order it like online day of release, or you can go to the store, and it's going to have like colored end pages, like different. So you can make Brian go to Target and get it for you.
Also, what is like the rule on gift cards? If you have a gift card,
ooh,
does it count?
Or if
I feel like a gift card doesn't count because the point is to be kind to my bank account.
But you can receive gifts, right? So like,
I can receive gifts.
Just come in fly down for the
we're just gonna buy you a book.
That's it. Yeah, that's a good New Year's resolution. So is each month
I'm gonna do a different challenge.
Now I want to know what February is.
So I haven't planned February out yet, but I've started gathering some ideas. So I'm doing no spend January. I'll do a month, like I'll do a dry month. I might even up the dry month to be, I don't know, because I do love my chocolate milk. But like to do only water during a month.
Whoa,
that's rough.
Yeah.
So I've done this before. Like one of the months I did no one-time use like containers, no straws, no plastic cups. If I brought like my own Tupperware to a restaurant, like if I knew I was going somewhere that this is a place where I don't usually finish the food, I had like Tupperware in my car. I had extra cups like in my car. So if I wanted Starbucks, I could. I had to have my own cup. I used, that's how I got really good in my habit of like using my green bag grocery bags. Cause like that month, like if I went to the grocery store and I didn't have something, like I was carrying it out or like putting it in the cart and then loading it individually pieces into my car. So it was good. It was a year is a long time to try something. The month felt much more approachable. Last time I did it, I did not time my dry month very well. And it was during football season. So I ended up like buying myself some days into the next month so that I could indulge
borrowing,
buy in, buy out.
It's like rollover PTO kind of.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But so I was like, yeah, no spend January I've done before and it hasn't been a problem. And then I was like, oh, Fourth Wing. Oh no. So
yeah. With like dry months, I don't necessarily like to do dry months, but I'd like to do no drinking like during the week, except Friday, Saturday. Like just keep Friday, Saturday because that's when. But and then it's hard. Sunday's football, but
Well,
so
football's almost over, Steph.
yeah, exactly. So that could be something too.
Yeah. I don't normally drink during the week. I am a social drinker. Like I will
Yeah.
if I am not out to eat or there are not additional people at my house, I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
Same.
So
Well, I have been I'm going to torture myself twice via Rebecca. So I'm reading Variation right now. I'm halfway through. It's really good. But I'm just waiting for my soul to be crushed during this book. I'm just waiting for it because I know it's
She
going to
does
happen.
that.
when does she really? What date is the release?
January 21st.
Yeah, I was like, if anybody knows that, Lauren knows it.
Mando's birthday.
Oh,
Oh,
perfect.
Mandy.
Yeah. I actually was like, I'm gonna get started on our next book just so I have an early start and then I finished it. And so I think I might just reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame before January 21st. I actually bought Fourth Wing, the like book,
Nice.
Ooh,
but Target didn't have Iron Flame. So
added the trophy to your shelf.
Checks out.
yeah, I know exactly. I rarely buy books.
I read it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah. So,
They are on Kindle Unlimited right now, both of them.
yes, yeah. I wanted the actual book,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can just kind of like,
They do look really pretty on the bookcase.
yeah. So,
And then you can stack them and you can see the color changing.
yeah, oh, perfect. I do have to get Iron Flame.
Did you guys realize that the covers, as they go through, it's like all gold and then it starts turning color and it like is an ombre effect with the covers if you stack them like not side to side, but like top to down.
It's gonna be 4 books?
5.
5. Okay.
Yeah. So,
So she'll break our heart 3 more times somehow. It's fine.
I know it'll be interesting.
Hopefully she only breaks our hearts 2 more times and then sews it back together really nicely 1 more time.
Oh,
Or else
there you
we
go.
will riot.
Yeah.
Oh man. I did also start the Peloton 100-day challenge, and I'm gonna put myself to do that. But it doesn't have to be a Peloton ride. So like TJ and I actually did a 10-minute yoga the other day.
And it counts.
And it counts. So it could be
Yeah.
like meditation, it could be anything. So that's been kind of like trying out different things on the Peloton app instead of just
Nice.
biking.
That's my other
So.
unofficial. I don't want to call it a New Year's resolution because I would like it to just be an actual habit, but to genuinely do the stretch classes after my
Yeah.
meetings. Not just like the 2-minute stretch where they're literally always say like this isn't enough, and I'm like, yeah, it is. I just walk away. Like I
Yeah.
would, and I've been good so far, but that's how I'm gonna try to stretch that 100-day challenge. Is so like today I ran outside, not on Peloton, but I'm gonna do a stretch class.
Yeah, no, that's what I did. Yeah, TJ and I did yoga the other day after I ran. And it was so funny because he was like not the biggest fan of doing yoga. And after the 10 minutes, like it was the perfect amount of time. It was more
Yeah.
of a stretch yoga. He was like, that felt really nice and we should do that more often. So
Yes, TJ.
I was like, there we go. All right, so I'm gonna get a little background and then Lauren's gonna take away with the summary.
All right, let's
So
get into
this
the
week,
Lost Bookshop.
yes, this week we read The Lost Bookshop, which was interesting to me because, and I don't know how you guys felt while reading this. I was into it while reading it, but I didn't have the urge to read it.
Yeah.
Like I was like I liked reading it, but I like when I put it down, I was like, okay, I put it down, and then I was like,
I'm not
oh,
thinking about it.
No.
So I audiobooked at like 1.3 speeds.
1.3 is not bad.
And the voices started sounding a little squeaky.
Because I don't drive as much anymore,
Thinking, like,
I've been listening to podcasts on 2.0 because
Holy how?
I only have so much time and it's an hour-long podcast, but I'm only going to be in the car for 20 minutes. I do love it though.
It makes you feel so okay. So you know when you get in the car and you're driving somewhere and the GPS says you're going to get there, then you're trying to beat it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it feels like when I read an audiobook at faster speed. It's like 8 more hours. No, it's not.
Oh my
My
gosh.
favorite is when you're used to listening to it fast and then it slows down, it sounds like they're drunk.
Yeah.
Because it's just everything's a little slower to come out, and you hear the changes in the sound a little more. And it brings me a lot of joy. Like when if someone else is in the car and we listen to a podcast, and so I listen to it on regular speed, I just giggle. I'm like, they're drunk.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so the Lost Bookshelf had a split timeline. So this is gonna be an interesting summary.
With three like characters that it follows.
Yeah,
So it was a little hard to do the summary, guys.
A lot of
Yeah.
points of view, yes.
lots of points of view.
So we start off with a first main character named Martha in like present day Dublin. We meet her when she's working at a bookshop, and a little boy comes in and she starts telling him the story of Opaline. Then we are introduced to Opaline, who this is London circa 1921. She's a 21-year-old, much younger than her siblings. Her father has passed from the Spanish flu in 1918, who she was very close with, and that's where she got her love of books. And then now her brother is the man of the house. He's not a nice guy. His name's Lyndon, and he is determined to marry her off, which she, of course, does not want. So she ends up selling her father's rare copy of David Copperfield. She's very sentimental to get enough money to escape her family. And then there's a quote that says, "That is how my career as a book dealer began." Then we're reintroduced to Martha, and it's 9 months earlier than when she's reading the story to the little boy, which took me a little bit of time to figure this one out. Martha has just escaped Dublin from an abusive husband. Her face is all beat up, and she applies for a job as a live-in maid as Madame Bowden's. And then very weird, like first day she's there's a guy like outside her window, and she thinks it's a peeping Tom. She opens it, yells at him, and it turns out to be our other main character, Henry, who is looking for something, a lost bookshop. It skips around a lot. So let me try and get some of these important points. Then we kind of skip back to Opaline. She escapes to Paris via a ship, and she bumps into a gentleman named Hassan. And initially she describes as she like loathes him. She bumps into him again after the boat at a bouquiniste. It's a fun word.
Yeah.
Where she finds a first edition Edgar Allan Poe and buys it, even though Armand Hassan was going there specifically to buy that book. So we bump back into Henry again, where we find out he's trying to find this lost bookshop at number 11, Halfpenny Lane, which doesn't exist. Martha works at number 12, Halfpenny Lane.
And number 10 exists and number 12 exists.
But no number 11.
Yeah.
This is what I thought of like Harry Potter, and you know, like when they like go into like a house and it like
I do love me some Harry Potter.
I think like the entire time I was just picturing Harry Potter while I was reading this.
I mean, as you're reading, there is that fantasy element. I'm like, I can see it.
Yeah. So
because it was like fantasy light. So I kind of pictured it as, you know how like in cities, sometimes like you have to go down because like the basement is the store, whatever you're looking for. And then it described her as being in the basement, like her little room, bottom Bowden. And he was looking down. So I just kind of pictured it as like 11, the downstairs apartment.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah.
The beginning didn't capture me.
Agreed.
I was just kind of like,
okay, things are happening. Being introduced.
And it wasn't fantasy off the bat.
No, like, not at all.
I don't even know that I describe it as fantasy so much as like magical-ish.
Yeah.
It was weird
in the way that like Cinderella is fantasy, which like the story's real except for the mice.
Yeah, true.
Like, it was interesting because I've never read like a historical fiction like this where they go point of views and they go back and forth between times, and it includes like this magical element. Like this was the first time.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And
I guess
I think you needed like 10 to 15% to really get the character straight, who belongs in which timeline.
Yes.
because
And
they kept jumping back and forth, and you're like, wait, who is this now, and what's their
right.
story?
And I had trouble with Martha being present day because her story feels so antiquated.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Same. And it was funny because I pictured her in the past.
I think
Right.
I, yeah. She didn't,
But then like Henry was in the present day, but they were together. I don't know. It was
Right. And
so
like
weird.
they had like cell phones. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
you're not back in 1920
20s.
something.
Yeah.
Even the 70s.
Really?
Like it threw me.
Yeah. We jump back to Opaline again. She's trying to find a job in Paris, and she ends up getting hired at a bookstore called Shakespeare and Company, owned by Sylvia Beach, and she's hired as an apprentice. Then we jump back to Martha. This is the entire book. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. Madame Bowden tells her this weird story about a bookstore that used to be on her street in the 1980s. Um, Martha, we find out like she's never liked books, but I don't understand why.
Intimidated by books.
Yes. I'm like, okay, weird, but anyway. Um, she goes to the library and like then doesn't know that you have to like check the book out, and Henry's there and she's kind of mortified that he sees this happening. They end up talking. We find out that Henry is writing a PhD proposal about a lost manuscript. He is engaged to Isabel, who like doesn't really want to marry him. He's like a last resort, is the way it's described
But
initially.
and
I got the
he
impression that Isabel wants to be married, and she's with
yes.
Henry right now.
Yeah, he's the guy in front of her.
Yeah.
But and he just proposed and then left.
Yes, he proposed in England and then left to go find this manuscript in
Yes.
Dublin. Martha ends up finding this picture of Opaline and Ernest Hemingway in France at Shakespeare and Company. We then jump back to Opaline. We're still Paris 1921. She has fallen in love with Armand. We get the story of Ernest Hemingway kind of creeping her out,
Yeah.
trying to like come on to her.
Mhm.
Um, Opaline then sees Armand intimate with another woman at a shop, so he's kind of
Player, player.
a
But I
playboy,
feel like in the 1920s they were all players. Like all the men
especially
in
in
Paris.
Paris.
They were just like letting the love go around.
Then Armand does, the normal thing. He runs after her and tells Opaline the other woman means nothing, and he's in love with Opaline.
Also, was Opaline okay? This is just a really quick side note. Opaline was the one who was wearing men's trousers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Huge deal.
Then
Yeah.
she's progressive. All right.
Yeah.
Opaline gets back to her apartment and sees her brother's walking cane.
The guy she's trying to run away from.
Yeah, what is his name again?
La
Lyndon.
Landon? I thought it was
I
Landon.
think it's Lyndon is how they said it in the
Oh,
audiobook.
oh, okay, okay.
So the author did this thing where she'd like end the chapter with like Opaline in grave danger. And then we'd hear from everybody else multiple times, whole perspectives, multiple chapters. I'm like, where's Opaline? Is she safe? Like it was like the only times where I like needed to keep going. Again, like the story was entertaining and I was captivated, but I wasn't like, I gotta find out what happens. Except for when she left me on like Opaline cliffhanger.
I know.
Yeah.
This was one of those times.
Agreed.
This
I liked
was when
Opaline's story the best of the three characters.
Yes, this is when I started getting interested in the story, I think.
I liked
was
the
like-
first half of Opaline's story.
The second half was a little
Depressing.
Yeah, it's a little.
agreed. And so I think a detail we missed out is Opaline's brother was in World War One as like a general.
Yes.
And he had a
very
nickname. The Reaper?
Oh yeah, Reaper.
Yes, something like that. Just not good, guys.
Yeah, he obviously had some untreated PTSD.
Absolutely. We then jump back to Martha, who we like in her little basement hut that she lives in under Madame Bowden's house. A crack starts forming in her.
Here's where the magic starts to
in
happen.
her flat, like this crack in the wall, and she just there's a crack now.
Oh,
Whatever.
weird.
We also learn about like this tattoo of words on her back.
Okay, I was so confused about the tattoo.
Same.
Did it
I
just
wanted to find
appear
out.
one day?
So that's later. But the tattoos that are currently on her back, where we're at in the story, she put there.
Okay,
Because like
okay.
she somehow this like comes to her in a dream or something, these words.
Like I must
And
write
she
this
gets them-
story down.
I write it down and then she goes and gets it tattooed in like the smallest print possible, and it's all over her back.
Why would you put it on your back? You can't read it.
She's intimidated of reading. That's why it's there.
Oh.
I'm saving this for later when I can
Yeah.
read with my neck crooked in the mirror
Ouch.
trying to go backwards.
You gotta read that. I don't know. Then I'm gonna go to Opaline back. Her brother was waiting for her with Lord Bingley. This
Oh, yes.
brings me back to like Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Bingley. And he has arranged for
Bridgerton.
Bingley to marry Opaline. And he found her from the Hemingway photo that was like published in
Oh, yes.
um
In the newspaper or whatever.
something. Opaline learns from Bingley that her brother killed multiple of his own men during the war. Henry pushes Opaline, she hits her head. Armand finds Opaline at the hotel and saves her, and they help her flee to Ireland. We skip back to Martha. Henry takes her to Trinity, like shows her some really old books, and she's kind of getting interested in books now.
Loves it.
Yes.
A little bit. We learn more about Henry at the pub, this sad story of his father was an alcoholic, sold a J.R. Tolkien letter that he found in a book. So, little background there. And we learned more about Martha's abusive husband, Shane.
Yes. And this is the story where she was in school and
Yes.
she met Shane and her friend, and she like started with the abuse. It was like one push or one punch. And then she like she was at the university, and then she kind of like broke things off with him and her friends helped her. He wasn't going to school with her.
Mm-mm.
And then all of a sudden, like he like turned back up and was like,
was
I
sad
love
and
you,
promised to
and
be
like
different almost.
I'm different and all this stuff. And so she like took him back, and all her friends were like, you escaped, you were good, you were gone. And then she was like, no, he's good, he's good.
Tale as old as time.
And then she like leaves the university and now is in a like marriage with this
Terrible person.
awful person.
Yeah.
So you learn about like maybe that was the reason she didn't like books, like because she was really she was doing well in school.
Mhm. So maybe it like brings back
Some
memories.
memories, yeah.
Makes sense. Then we skip back to Henry, and Martha figures out like he has a fiance. He's honest with Martha and, tells her about Isabel.
This was the funniest
Yeah.
part in the book, I thought, because it was like he asked her like, do you have a boyfriend? And she was like, no. And she was like, do you? And he's like, actually, I have a fiance. It's like, what?
All right. And he describes Isabel as like this really successful person. Like, however, she's changed careers multiple times, but somehow like excels at all of that.
Yes.
And he's trying to win her over and like be good enough to be with someone like Isabel. So
Yeah.
it's almost like he's not even being himself.
Yeah. He doesn't feel like himself.
All right, back to Opaline.
Ah,
She arrives in Dublin. She's offered a small flat in a basement by Matthew Fitzpatrick, who is now the owner of this little like nostalgia shop that his father owned. And his father was the contact that Sylvia Beach had.
Oh, yes.
The one thing that was interesting, the stair riser. So it was like you walked down or up the stairs. I don't remember. It had these words on it that said, in a place called Lost, strange things are found. Like, that's probably important for later in the book. And then the place Opaline is staying does some weird things. Like, keeps throwing this book on the floor, Dracula, and she's like, oh, that must be a sign that I should read this book. Like, that's the first thing you think.
The magic aspect coming back.
Yes.
Yeah.
They describe the shop as like a living being. Then we skip back to Martha, who's in her room, and the crack is getting bigger. And then magically, a book called A Place Called Lost just appears. And she's like, oh, I must read that, obviously.
And she thinks it's Madame
Books ever
Bowden.
just appear to you guys?
I
Yeah.
wish.
Madame Bowden, who like doesn't make her own food or do her own laundry or clean her own house, is installing these shelves and putting books out in Martha's room for her.
Mm.
That's
Checks
her
out.
thought process. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we jump back to Henry, who like apologizes to Martha, but then, starts talking about his lost manuscript. It's kind of, he is so obsessed with it. Questions why there's no trace of Opaline in history. And then Martha's like, well, why don't you think about it this way? Gives him advice like where to look next.
And they decide they're going to be friends.
Yeah.
There's romantic feelings, but they're just going to be friends.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, Martha tells him that like Madame Bowden had a friend years ago that saw the bookshop. But then Henry finally drops the bomb, like, oh, when I first got to Dublin, I was in the bookshop. Like, you could have told us that
Me
earlier.
also saw it.
Then we're back to Opaline. It's Dublin 1922. She changes her last name to Gray. She ends up kissing Matthew, but then Matthew leaves. We don't really know why. Is he married? Is he? No idea. It
Yeah.
was weird. Matthew has a young son.
Who comes to the bookshop?
Then Opaline gets this invitation to go to some library in England, but we have to wait because we jump back to Martha.
Well, and she can't go to England because that's where her brother is.
Yeah, so she's really nervous to go back.
Yeah. She doesn't want to run into him.
Then we jump to Martha, who a new book somehow magically appears in her room, Normal People by Sally Rooney. Anyone watch the TV show?
No.
Oh.
So it's got, I don't remember her name. It was interesting. I don't know if I'd watch it again. I think it's a good story. It's like about two kids. They're in high school and in college, and they, they're in love, but then, they do stupid things that normal teenagers do, and then they get back together multiple times, and it's kind of sad, actually.
Oh.
I don't know. Then we jump back to, Martha. She's reading this book, and Shane finds her, tells her this bogus lie that her mother is in the hospital with cancer and demands she comes back with him. But Madame Bowden comes to the rescue.
Yeah, and helps
says,
her.
oh, well, she can leave tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, we'll take care of this. She needs to stay with me. This is her job.
Says she can leave tomorrow with you. And Shane like spits on the floor and huffs and puffs
Yes.
and leaves.
So according to Shane, one of his friends saw Martha and told him where she
with
was.
Henry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I forgot they kissed.
They did.
Yeah.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah. Before he mentioned the fiance.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
I think that after the kiss was when he was like, do you have a boyfriend? And she was like, no, do you? And he's like, actually, I have a fiance.
Turns out I'm highly committed to someone. And we jump back to Henry. They admit they like each other. Some weird things, like Henry doesn't actually miss Isabel. Martha registers for a course at Trinity.
Yes.
Which is like a really good school.
Yeah.
Casual, like one of the best schools there
Right.
is.
I got in. I decided I wanted to, so I did.
Yeah.
That was like parts of the timeline that I'm like, this isn't modern day. You can't
No.
do that.
And also, like some of these chapters in this section, when we're jumping back and forth, I think like they just, oh, well, we have to go to Henry's point of view now, but like nothing important really
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, well, because I think it was like the pattern. It was like Opaline, Martha, Henry,
and then-
Opaline,
I know.
Martha, Henry.
And there are some chapters where I'm like, this did not need to be there.
Yeah.
But then we're back to Opaline. She goes to the library in England. This is circa 1922. And she is specifically specifically looking for Bronte books. Um, she had found a letter supporting that Emily Bronte had started a second manuscript, but no one's ever found it. She never finished, never published. From the library, she's directed to a Brown's Bookshop. It was like an old Bronte bookstore in London. And somehow she runs back into Armand Hassan, and he invites her to go to London to the Sotheby auction for like this first edition book. Um, it's I don't really understand the purpose of this, but then she
Yeah.
runs back into
It's
Armand
yeah.
Hassan.
I think she just was
And
excited about Armand and excited about the hunt.
for the books,
Yeah, for the
yes.
books.
Like, because she really wants to be one of the best book dealers there
Yeah.
are.
Okay, this is where I got a little confused. And maybe you guys can help me. So, Opaline was one of the biggest book dealers, right? But she was like in hiding for a majority of her life.
Yeah, because she changed, she went by a different name, and
So how was she such a big book dealer
that's what I wanted to too.
if she was in hiding for majority of her life?
We'll get to that, guys.
It almost felt like the way book dealing was described was like drug dealing.
Oh, I 100% agree.
Like black market, secret.
Seedy people in seedy places.
Yes. Yes.
Paying thousands of dollars for first editions.
Yes.
I think we figured out what the book's really about, guys.
Well, and then
The
when they were
That's where the magic
Uh-huh.
comes from. It's actually
Yeah.
opioids.
It's LSD, actually.
It's opioid gray was her actual name, and
yeah, that when I was like reading this and I was thinking about like, okay, so these people are paying thousands of dollars for a first edition Alice in Wonderland. Where would they do with it? Just like put it in a bookshelf?
Yeah, to show their rich friends.
Yeah, like art I kind of understand, but like a book?
I guess it is a different type of art.
Also, if it's
I
present
do,
day,
like,
they
I
have
understand it
Kindles.
on the same level that I understand art of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who like collect books when you have that much throwaway money.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know.
I'm like, if you had, like, I really like the book The Awakening by Kate Chopin. And if I like could have access to like a first edition or something, like that would be cool. Or like, what's that book with, oh, not that book, that movie with Ryan Reynolds and Amy Adams, where like somebody had given her a special edition, maybe her dad or something,
Like
of a book, like a first
I've
edition
heard of like
inscribed it.
children's books, like first editions of like a children's book, or like I Love You to the Moon, I Love You Moon, or something.
I mean, of course, the classics like a first edition Pride and Prejudice. Or
Yeah.
Right.
the-
Yeah. I think it would be a cool thing to have. But again,
I mean, if someone
hardly
offered it
buy
to me,
regular books.
Yeah.
But would you spend thousands of dollars on it?
If I had thousands of dollars, I could spend
Just
it
not in January, and no,
right, yeah, not this month.
If we had endless amounts of surplus money, then yes, I think we would. All right, back to the book. We
It's all right.
jump back to Martha, and Shane comes back drunk, hits Martha. He's, because he saw her kissing Henry, Madame voted to the rescue again, and she actively pushes Shane down the stairs.
Yeah,
Maybe-
and he's dead.
He's unalived. Madame Bowden then, sends Martha away, and Martha's like, "No, we have to take care." She's like, "Go to the market.
I need
Get
you
me
to
the
buy
food
these
that we-"
7 things quickly.
Yeah.
Yes. By the time Martha gets back, Shane's body is gone. A detective comes
The
and says,
banister is fixed.
"Right? How did Madame Bowden do this?"
Magic.
I think so. The detective comes and says they found Shane's body in the river. Martha's alibi is that she was shopping at the market. So, Madame
All the
Bowden,
receipts.
genius. I feel like she probably did this before.
Yes.
Suspect.
Madame Bowden has what, like 3 husbands who've all died on her too?
something. So Martha's like, did you kill your husbands? And Madame Bona goes, I'm gonna forget you ever said that.
Yeah.
Oof, some tension.
Yes. Then we go back to Henry, who, went back to London to break up with Isabel. Yeah, he goes to his mother's house. His sister is heavily pregnant. I was like, okay,
Yeah, his sister
And
ends
part
up
of the
having the
story
baby, so
felt really unnecessary.
yeah.
agreed.
Like, yay, a baby, hooray. But like, come on, you're not moving the plot along. There was no plot.
Yeah.
I know.
This
It's
is like
like,
the spicy
okay,
scene of this book, but there wasn't spice. Didn't
yeah.
have plot.
It's basically the whole chapter. He's back in London, breaks up with Isabel, and then he's with his family.
Yeah, and then his sister ends up having the baby, so he has to stay longer.
Yeah, that's a couple chapters later.
Oh, never mind. That's the next one.
His next, yeah. Then we're back to Opaline, England, 1922. She's back with Armand Hassan for the night after the bookshop. She went to that Brown's bookshop for the Bronte lead, and they're like, we don't have anything, but we have this old tin sewing box. And they just like give it to her.
Yeah, here
It
you
belonged
go.
to Charlotte Bronte. And then 3 months later, no word from Armand. Bookshop does some weird things, and Opaline figures out she's pregnant.
Yes, she feels the movement of the baby.
Yes. Then we're back to Martha. She hasn't talked to Henry since Shane died because she goes to his hotel, finds out he went back to England, never told her. Martha didn't get his letter that she wrote, but also, like, you're in the modern day. Send a text, buddy.
Yeah.
Send a text. So
Call.
she ends up blocking Henry. She goes back home for his funeral. Shane didn't tell his mother
They
that
were
they were
separated.
separated and that Martha left him. His mom thinks she was being so supportive, letting her go off to school, and Martha's mother speaks for the first time, and like,
She was
I
annoying.
don't understand why she was mute. I'm like, why? But she speaks for the first time in years and says, I'm happy he's dead.
Yes. And this was another one. Another random
Like-
thing that I feel like just got thrown at
Like,
me.
it wasn't necessary for the story.
Yes.
It was
and
drama
like,
for the
oh,
sake
mom's
of
mute.
drama.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, we have a mute woman.
And it just made me feel bad for like Martha that she had such a crappy mom.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the first thing you say is I'm happy he's dead. Not I'm glad
I love
you're
you.
okay.
You couldn't have told me this earlier, so I didn't marry this
Yeah.
guy.
Like, yeah.
I don't know. Then we're back to Henry. Lucinda finally.
There,
His sister
Shanana, this is
has
the
the baby. He
baby.
wants to tell Martha. He calls her, no dial tone.
No doubt.
But Henry's
2020 something.
because she already blocked him.
Right. Nobody has a dial tone though. Like that's on a house phone.
Good point. Yeah. It just like wouldn't go through, right?
Yeah, I think it just like I don't remember.
Maybe.
I know. It's whatever.
Then when they're at the hospital, Henry's father, who of course he's like estranged from because his dad was so terrible.
Yes, and he was an alcoholic.
Comes to the hospital to see the baby, and he loses it. He's like, no, you can't be here. And then the chapter's done.
Yep, more drama.
Yeah. Jump back to Opaline, and we find a hidden notebook in that sewing box.
Which is so funny because I think of it like like a sewing box is like this big.
They have some of like the big tins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
felt
why
like
I
it was a big
pictured it
one.
so tiny.
Yeah. And this notebook was Emily Bronte's,
Yes.
which is really cool.
And it has little writing in it.
Mm-hmm. Then we jump back to Martha, who now has an epiphany of more words to add
Oh,
to
yeah.
her tattoo. So she goes to the tattoo parlor, shows them what words she wants, and the guy goes, it's already here. Like it's already on her back. Which
Was a little okay, so there were certain parts of this book where I'm reading it and I'm like, did I miss something? And
Right.
this was one of them.
Yes.
it took me a little bit to realize, I'm like, so the tattoo just like magically finished itself on her back. So some words did just magically appear. You're
Okay,
correct, Steph.
yeah. Well, okay, so it was
I
the
thought-
mom being mute, this part, and then there's a third part where I was like, wait a second, am I missing something?
I thought she had like forgotten pieces of it or something. Not that the tattoos magically appeared, but that
I think
like
it like
No, it magically appeared
okay.
on her
No,
back.
that makes so much more sense than like I had thought it as she knows the story so well, but she forgot she like, oh yeah, I got paragraph 12 already.
Yeah.
No, it was
Okay.
just like already there.
That makes more sense. I mean, it doesn't, but like it does.
We also don't know what the story on her back is yet. Let's put
Right.
that out there in the world. Then Opaline's like reading a place called Lost, and she kind of, I think she figures out, or we figure out that it's about Opaline
Yes.
and the bookshop that and Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
But then we get to wait and we jump back to Henry. Um, it's like his sister convinces him to visit his father in rehab, and
Yeah.
I don't know. But then he somehow gets an email with from some contact at some university, and it's a letter from Opaline to Sylvia. So then that's kind of the end of the chapter.
Which was weird because she was writing to Sylvia, but she wasn't signing it for Sylvia. She was signing it for somebody else so that her brother wouldn't find it. Because it wasn't when she was writing to Sylvia, was she using a different name?
Opaline Gray.
Yes, but
She's-
no, but like to Sylvia. I thought the letters were like a little different. Yeah.
Then we jump back to Opaline. It's Dublin 1923. She's back at some book auction, goes to a library with some dude, and Armand is there. And Armand is just absolutely terrible. She shows him the Bronte manuscript, and Armand wants to take over the sale of the manuscript, insults her little shop, and says no one will take her seriously because she's a woman. And then she tells him off and he leaves forever.
And we never see Armand again.
That is the end of Armand, but she doesn't tell him that she's pregnant with his baby.
No,
Right.
she leaves that.
That was a good chapter.
Yeah.
A lot happens.
Yes.
Then we're back to Martha. The tree. So the crack in her room has now turned into some tree coming out of it, and it's getting bigger. She has her first day at Trinity, and that's about all that's happened.
Yep.
Then Henry goes back to Dublin to see Martha. Madame Bowden confronts him. He says he loves her, and that's kind of the end of that chapter.
Then it starts getting quick. But at the end, I was like, okay, wow, a lot is starting to happen. It's starting to close all the doors.
Opaline, it's back to her, and then this guy she went to that bookshop with, his name is Mr. Ravel, comes to her bookshop, then like disappears before tea is done. It's weird. The letter she wrote to Sylvia is gone.
Yes.
So now we think, okay, did Mr. Ravel work for her brother? We're not entirely sure. Opaline plans to leave immediately to go to New York to see this woman whose husband is a successful book dealer. But before she leaves, she gives Matthew the manuscript to protect. Then she like naps, and then bright lights are in her face.
Like,
Yeah,
I need
she
to
knows
leave
something
immediately.
bad's about to
Let me take a
happen.
nap.
Thank you.
Yeah, she has like this bad feeling, but
So then that chapter ends, and we're back to Martha.
She wakes up with the bright light in her face, and again, I'm like, oh, Pauline, oh no.
Yeah. Like
gotta read 2 more chapters.
We only get the cliffhangers for Opaline.
Yes.
No.
Then we're back to Martha. This chapter was basically a throwaway, except for the fact that Henry comes back. Martha thinks he only came back for Opaline's story, and then just like runs away from him. Then Henry's drunk, laying in the street outside Martha's house. She doesn't want to get hurt again, so they like don't really talk.
Yeah, this was starting to be weird.
Yeah, those chapters weren't really necessary.
Yeah.
Back to Opaline, Dublin, 1922. Her brother did find her and admits her to an insane asylum. Lyndon just makes all of these ludicrous claims, like the doctor is in cahoots. Basically, the doctor thinks the female sex is a nuisance to be controlled.
Yeah.
What I don't understand about this part is, I guess maybe in the 20s, like dowry wasn't a thing. But I always felt like there was something that Lyndon had to gain from marrying off Opaline.
Yeah.
Like, why he's now paying money each month
I
to
know.
the insane
For her to
asylum. Like, it costs you more money to go find, like, that part I didn't understand. And maybe it's just that he is so, like, damaged from the war and such a terrible person that he feels the need to get his revenge or something. Like, I don't know what it was, but this part was hard to read because it didn't seem to make sense in line with what he was as a character, and it was hard to read.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It
Yeah, like
this
she's
was
screaming, she's,
the other people in there
Yes.
are it was rough. Then we skip to Martha. The only thing important from this chapter is she makes 20,000 euro from the sale of her and Shane's
Shane's
apartment.
apartment.
And then more books on the crazy tree bookshelf. Henry ends up losing his funding for his like research because he just doesn't have enough to go on. Like there's nothing there that is good. But then he ends up finding a letter to the editor about the terrible insane asylums from Lady Jane Finley, who was Opaline's friend. So that kind of clues them into that. We're back to Opaline and just more of the terrible, terrible treatments
That
of,
she's getting.
yeah, like it's just absolutely
And
terrible.
it was all the women there that were just like, she makes friends, but like they also have horrible stories. And
Opaline ends up going into labor initially, then and like it's freezing cold in here.
yeah,
The nurse like refuses to wake the doctor overnight. They refuse to take her to a hospital, and then finally she ends up having the baby, and she's like been all night long. So she like passes out, and then when she wakes up, they say the baby died because the cord was wrapped around the neck. Did the baby actually die?
no, yeah, I knew like the minute I was like,
Yeah, it's
they
like
definitely,
that's
yeah,
complete bullshit.
they
But
definitely took away the baby.
yeah.
Because I think one of her friends, Mary, was like, yeah, my baby died too. And I was like, okay, that's a
Yeah.
coincidence.
So we don't know for sure, but definitely a hunch. We flip back to Martha. Somehow the books are, easier for her to read after the tattoo is complete. She's in school at Trinity. Then we jump to Henry. Madame Bowden calls Henry and invites him to Martha's birthday. It was just weird. Like they end up dancing together. He tells her, "You were right. We wouldn't have worked out." He gives her a pen and then he leaves.
Yeah.
It's like it was a very odd interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Opaline in the asylum, 1923. Not doing so well.
Yeah.
She's been there for a year. Her roommate is like coughing. She ends
Dying.
up
It's
dying.
freezing.
It's freezing. It's just bad.
She's never gonna get out.
Once, she has thoughts of
So,
unaliving to
yeah.
be with her baby. I don't. Yeah, nothing really important happens here. Henry ends up going to the asylum with Martha. Like,
This was like my favorite part, I think, of the book.
yeah. Then we got investigator Martha.
Yeah.
I love
And
Investigator Martha so much.
Yeah, she was the best.
Henry in this like section, I'm like, are you actually smart? Like the man doesn't think ahead, like doesn't have a plan whatsoever. He's like, let's go, but doesn't like plan anything. What are we gonna say when we get there? So Martha to the rescue, and she's very quick. She
Sneaks in. She was able to get
Well,
them
they
in.
pretend that they work for the health department and
Yeah.
they're there to investigate. And the woman's like, okay, lets them in. Like, we only need to see your documents. So
I was blown away that this asylum still existed.
I
Yeah, I know. That's true.
know. Henry's kind of being an ass, and Martha ends up finding the records before they're kicked out because
They found out. Yeah.
yeah, the woman's like, there's no scheduled. We called the health department. You're lying. So they end up fleeing, but Martha actually found something that was important. Then we jump to Opaline, World War II.
Opaline finds out her mom had died, but nobody told her. So
like 2 weeks ago, she's like, "Oh, I'd like to go to the service." Oh, it already happened.
yeah. So she figures out Dr. Lynch and what's going on, and I guess so her brother's paying Dr. Lynch to keep Opaline there for as long as he can.
Mhm.
And all
And
of these
so-
other people.
Yes. And so Opaline's like, well, if I'm dead, you're not going to get any money. So
She's somehow like on his desk is like this knife,
yeah.
and she puts it to his neck, and he ends up letting her go.
Yeah. And she's like, just pretend I'm still here
And you'll get your money.
yeah. Nobody's checking up on me anyways.
Right. Then we skip to Martha. Her mom just randomly shows up, because she can speak now, and tells Martha that Martha's grandmother was adopted as a baby. And I'm like, oh,
I know, I
that
knew
must be
it.
Opaline's baby.
Yep, I knew it.
Um, I don't know, but her grandmother like left when Martha's mom was young to go find her birth mother in Dublin, but then she was hit by a train.
Yeah.
Just little, again, what you had said earlier, drama for the sake of drama.
Yeah.
Like we could have died by something a little more reasonable.
So we go back to Henry and he finds another letter from Jane to Opaline. And then
That was the extent of that.
yeah.
Then we jump back to Opaline. It's Dublin, 1941. She's out of the asylum. She goes back to the bookshop to find the windows boarded up. And just some random like German Austrian guy is there and he just comes to read. I think he's like Nazi German but his plane crashed in Ireland.
And he was like, I have no choice. I have to, like, his country was taken over.
Yeah.
And they kind of like start this like friendship.
Yeah, it was weird.
But then he has to leave because he has to go back to.
You're skipping ahead here.
Oh, sorry.
Well, not quite. He ends up leaving like 3 years later to go back to Austria. But right when Opaline gets back to Dublin, she tries to find Matthew, and it takes her a long time. And she finds out he was killed a year ago after, Germans bombed London while he was there visiting. But she ends up reopening the bookshop. When Joseph leaves to go back to Austria, Opaline's like, he's my true soulmate. Like, but he's gone.
Right.
Then we jump back to Henry. And like the only thing important from this chapter that I gathered was he figures out Martha's tattoo is the lost Bronte manuscript. And the words are also like embroidered in Opaline's skirt.
When she was at the insane asylum so that she could remember. Also, Madame Bowden is missing. Nobody's seen her.
Oh, yes. Forgot about that.
And Martha's mom said, I have no idea who you're talking about. Because she was like, Martha was like, didn't you meet her? And she was like, no. And so.
Wait, what are you talking about? Huh?
Yeah. So in the book, Martha's was like, Mom, did you meet Madame Bowden? And she's like, no, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Oh, so Madame Bowden was like in her, but Henry met her. So like Madame Bowden's only there for like
Henry and Martha were the only ones who met her.
But Madame Bowden, like they had the party for her birthday, so.
Oh, I don't know.
But no, it was
okay, I missed that part.
It was like there was a number of people who were like, I don't know who you're talking about. I've never seen her.
Yes.
Yeah, like, she hosted that party and only her friends came and she never came down to see her friends. Like
true. Oh yeah, Madame Barty. Oh yeah.
So what I couldn't figure out, because we're getting close to the end.
Yes. This is where like this is another one where I was okay, I kind of had a feeling that Madame Bowden was kind of like a ghosty type character, especially when the magic started happening.
Like in
Ghosty. So that's what I couldn't figure out. Was I supposed to think at first I thought, is she Opaline present day?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Then she was like weird invisible-ish. And I was like, is this Opaline's ghost? Is it Bronte's ghost trying to help? Ooh. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't think it would be present day Opaline because it should be great grandma. Because it was right?
Yeah.
So but then I was like, Opaline wasn't married 3 times.
True. Well, that we know of.
Maybe she was Sylvia.
I feel like she could have been I don't know. Then we jump back to Opaline. It is London, 1946. She finds proof that Lyndon wrongfully killed soldiers with PTSD, and she gives it to the newspaper and then goes home to confront Lyndon.
Okay, this was I could have done without this part.
Yeah.
So Lyndon reveals he's actually Opaline's father. Got a French woman pregnant when he was 20 years old, on that year, that you go do whatever you want between high school or whatever they call it, college.
So like I don't know why I didn't realize they had that big of an age gap.
Yeah, it was like, yeah.
Because when he was 20, so
There's
how
a
is
16-year,
no
no,
20
20 years.
or
Sorry, I can math today. A 20-year, yeah, that was in the first chapter. Like they
okay.
said,
Yeah.
Opaline was much younger than her
Okay, okay.
sibling. Um, Lyndon then reveals he sold Opaline's baby. Opaline leaves and hears this gunshot when
And he
she's
like
leaving and killed
he killed
himself.
himself.
Um, we're back to Martha. Madame Bowden never comes back. We find a birth certificate of Opaline's baby named Rose. Figure out Rose is
Martha's
Martha's
grandmother.
grandmother.
Okay, is this the part? This was because we're close to the end, and this was the part where I was like, wait a minute. Martha reveals to Henry that she can read his thoughts.
Wait, what?
Like, there's a part in this book where like she speaks and he's like, wait, I didn't say that. I thought about that. And she was like, yeah, I can read your brain. And I was like,
I
what?
completely missed that part.
Right, right, Amity? I'm not like making that up. It was so
I thought
random.
it was Madame Bowden reading people's minds.
No, I think it's Martha could read people's minds.
How is that beneficial to the story? I don't know.
I swear. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, did I miss it? This was like one of the parts where I was like, did I miss this in the entire book that she could read people's minds? And she was like, oh, I can kind of read minds. It was
Weird.
so weird. I'll have to find it in the story. And I was like,
I don't know. Then Henry, they find the bookshop, and a note from Madame Bowden, but I don't remember what the note said. So, do you?
no, I'm trying to look up this part about.
No.
Then we're back to Opaline. It's Dublin, 1952, and she starts writing a place called Lost as a children's book.
Oh, yeah.
Yosef comes back 8 years later after his father passed away. He ends up giving Opaline her father's book, the one she sold in that very like first chapter. He found it in a bookshop in Austria. That was really sweet. Martha and Henry, we're back to them. They wake up, the tree is gone, the bookshop is there. Something about like Martha was the one that was lost. She had to find herself, not the bookshop. And then we're in the epilogue.
Yeah. Okay, here, look.
Mm.
It says, that's what you're thinking about. How, wait, how did you? I hadn't spoken that part. She got up, pulled her clothes. How did you know that's what it's a gift, Henry, and I don't plan on hiding it anymore.
I don't, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
I completely missed that.
She could read his mind. And I was like, wait, what?
Why?
I was like,
Because is she gonna be the next Miss Bowden? Like Madame Bowden? I don't know. The whole thing, so this is like the book's basically over.
Yeah. Then we
I
go
was-
back to the initial like bookshop when Martha's with the little boy. Her and Henry are married, but they never found the Bronte manuscript. It's somewhere hidden in a vault in an Irish bank. And that's the end of the book.
So anticlimactic.
I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything I felt like we were working towards.
I don't know. So this book has like what is the rating? 4.4 stars with 111,000 reviews on Amazon. Like I don't know.
It
I
was
disagree completely. Like that would be a 9 in
What?
like our rating. Like that's a 9
yeah, it would be
in
a
our
9.
rating system.
Yeah, I think it was a little, I was like, there was like another one where I was like, wait, what? So, yes, it was a very interesting book. It was very different from any book that we've read.
Definitely. I think it's really
Yes.
hard for me with more than two point of view.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of, 2 points of view, great.
I love
More than
multiple
that.
points of view.
I think multiple points of views work if not everybody has their own baggage. Like each character that has a point of view has like a lot of baggage that you
Yeah.
have to like unearth.
Dissect.
Yeah, exactly. And like
I
go
think
through.
that all of the like this book didn't, I don't know, what is it, like spider web? Like all of the dots didn't connect back together. Isabel
Yeah.
wasn't important to the story. The new baby
Mhm.
and the sister wasn't important to the story. Armand Hassan didn't seem like, sure, he got her pregnant, but like didn't seem consequential to the story. Like a lot of these background things that we spent so much time on weren't like, wow, that's how that connects. That you often like that are so valuable in a multiple point of view story. Like, of course,
Yeah.
we had to go on that tangent to get this piece of information to connect here. Like, and we went on an awful lot of tangents that maybe all three of us missed it. Unlikely, I guess, for all three of us to miss it. But like the wrap up
Wasn't, yeah.
wasn't there for me.
Well, and then there's the like random things that would just happen that was like no explanation. Like, why didn't
Why?
her mom talk? Why could she, how could all of a sudden she read minds? Does she read everybody's mind or is it just Henry's? Like, why, like, if I was reading her point of view, I feel like should know that she's reading people's minds
Hey,
or
it's
reading
not
Henry's.
like this has been told by a narrator and that should have been a secret.
Yeah, Also, if she could read his mind, then how did she not know he was engaged?
Thanks. Yeah, agreed.
Or that Shane
So, yeah.
sucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that he was abusive. I don't know. It was very strange.
We've talked about this on other books, is that neat little bow at the end. We didn't get it.
No.
No, I don't even know that this was knotted.
They're just flapping in the wind.
Right.
It's like that bracelet where it has like the thing where it's like all like you find it in your jewelry case and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. Look at all these friends you've made.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so rating out of 10.
Oh,
Amity, what are you giving it?
5.
Whoa.
that's what I was going with too.
Okay, I'll give it a 6. I did give it 4 stars out of 5 stars, but I was like so confused at the end.
Then why did you give it 4 stars?
I was like, so that's a 5.3 repeating. Also, this was like my first book of 2025, and I'm like, whoa. Like
What a way to start.
What way to start it.
All right. Well, our next book is My Best Bet by S.C. Kate. I've read one of her other series. She happens to be from Michigan, just like me, like nearby.
Oh, cool.
She was an ice skater, a little bit about the author. I think she's a teacher. Don't quote me on any of this.
I actually started following her on Instagram, and so she has a lot of skating books. And
yes, the first like big series that she had was all like ice skating, hockey. It's super cute. Really enjoyed her book, so I'm excited for this one.
I'm excited for it too. So we'll see you back for that next book, My Best Bet by S.C. Kate. We're betting it's going to be a better review from us than this book. Thanks for listening to all of our reviews, rants, and ramblings. Remember, if you also read this book and you review it on Amazon or Goodreads, maybe include that Shmindle Shmumlimited sent you. But if you wouldn't mind a quick review on your podcast platform of our podcast, we would be forever grateful. Have a great weekish, and we can't wait to read, review, rant, and ramble about the next book with you.